So we have some absolutely giant news that came out, I think it's a couple days ago now, but I want to break it all down for you guys because it's super important. So this is in NBC. They say Trump has been unable to get a bond for $464 million judgment, his lawyers say. In a filing to an appeals court, Trump's attorney said getting the bond needed to halt proceedings while they appeal is a practical impossibility. So remember, we had the E. Jean Carroll case in that because of defamation, he has to pay, I think it's $83.3 million. Now, he was able to get a bond for that one. But after that, there was the ruling in the civil case on business fraud, insurance fraud, tax fraud, things of that nature. And he's going to have to pay over $450 million for that one. And basically, no company is willing to put up the bond. So then what happens, you might be asking? Well, sit back and relax and I'll explain it all to you. So here's what they say. Former President Trump has not been able to get a bond to secure the $464 million civil fraud judgment against him and his co-defendants, his lawyer said in a court filing Monday. Trump and his company need to post a bond for the full amount by next week in order to stop New York Attorney General Letitia James from being able to collect while he appeals. They've asked an appeals court to step in the meantime and said Monday that they had not had any success getting a bond. Quote, defendants' ongoing diligent efforts have proven that a bond in the judgment's full amount is a practical impossibility, the filing said. These diligent efforts have included approaching about 30 surety companies through 4 separate brokers. They basically went to every place that does bonds, and everyone took a look at it and was like, sorry, homie, you're on your own. Their efforts, including countless hours negotiating with one of the largest insurance companies in the world, have proven that obtaining an appeal bond in the full amount of the judgment is not possible under the circumstances presented. The other bond companies will not accept hard assets, such as real estate, as collateral, but will only accept cash or cash equivalents, such as marketable securities, the filing said. The lawyers also noted those companies typically require collateral of approximately 120% of the amount of the judgment, which would total about $557 million. In addition, sureties would likely charge bond premiums of approximately 2% per year with 2 years in advance, an upfront cost of $18 million. The filing said that $18 million would not be recoverable even if Trump wins his appeal. In all, the filing said the actual amount of cash or cash equivalents required to collateralize the bond and have sufficient capital to run the business and satisfy its other obligations approaches $1 billion. While the filing says Trump can't afford the bond, it also argues that the Attorney General doesn't have to worry about being able to collect her judgment. Well, that makes no sense. Quote, defendants' real estate holdings, including iconic properties like 40 Wall Street, Doral Miami, and Mar-a-Lago, greatly exceed the amount of the judgment. Such assets are impossible to secrete or dispose of surreptitiously, leaving the plaintiff effectively secure during the pendency of an appeal. Trump's team also argued the $464 million penalty is grossly disproportional and cited the argument they made throughout the months-long trial that there are no victims as there were no damages and no financial losses. That's just not true. In a filing last month, Trump's lawyers asked that the bond amount be reduced to $100 million. But Monday's filing argues he shouldn't have to put up any bond at all. Wow. James' office has argued that Trump should put up the full amount. A 30-day automatic stay of the judgment handed down by Judge Arthur Engoron is set to expire March 25th. That's the big day, y'all. At which point, James would be clear to start seizing Trump's assets unless the appeals court steps in. Now, by the way, I think the appeals court is going to step in and rule one way or the other. I think. So we'll have to see. What do we got? 5 days or so to find out? That's my guess. But either way, this is a huge deal. James would not need an additional court order to start collecting in New York, where Trump has his company and a large number of real estate assets. But those efforts could be complicated by any mortgages or debts he has on those properties. It's unclear what properties or assets James might look to seize. So in other words, all of these massive Trump properties, theoretically, they could start being seized in 5 days. Wow. Stephen Chung, a spokesman for Trump's campaign, said in a statement that the judgment is unjust, unconstitutional, and un-American. A bond of this size would be an abuse of the law, he said. Trump asked that if the state appellate division denies his request, the judges enter a temporary stay so he can try to make his case to the state's highest court, the Court of Appeals. Engoron handed down his judgment last month after finding Trump and his company had repeatedly committed fraud by overinflating personal financial statements that he used to secure bank loans and insurance policies. James' office said there were years when Trump's assets were overvalued by more than $2 billion. Trump maintained he did nothing wrong and testified, blah, 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 blah. You guys know the rest of it. We went through all the specifics of the case. But look, bottom line is we're looking at a potential bankruptcy. We're looking at massive, massive assets being seized. He's really up shit's creek without a paddle here, man. He really is. And I am very interested in what the appeals court is going to say in this decision. But suffice to say, and look, this puts another debate to rest here. He doesn't have cash on hand of over $400 million. Now, that was something we all kind of thought and believed and were able to tease out from various news articles. But he was always insistent that he's a billionaire and also he has that sort of cash on hand. He doesn't. He doesn't. It's tied up, of course, in his various properties. He has a lot of these properties. It's tied up in his properties. And so he can't get a bond, which means now he either needs the appeals court to save him and kick the can down the road, or it's immediate, like after 5 days, a lot of his properties start getting seized. Damn, man. This is a big deal. So look, yet again, I'll reiterate a very important point, which is that he had this aura of invincibility for a while, right? I mean, look at Russiagate, for example, the impeachments, which got through the House, but then failed in the Senate. But it still felt like, okay, he sort of gets away with everything, right? It's actually not like that. Now it's a total mixed bag, and sometimes he gets away with stuff, and other times he got fucking nailed on this one, man. He got nailed on this one. So let's see what the appeals court says, but they have a very small window to jump in and address it. But it is absolutely on the table that, look, if nothing changes from now, they will be seizing his assets. They will be seizing these, multi-million-dollar New York City Trump properties. So, wow. Now, by the way, there has been a string of polls now that have come out that show Biden is leading Trump by 2 points here, by 1 point here, by 3 points here. There was an Ipsos poll where Biden is leading Trump by 5 nationally. My speculation on those polls is what's been in the news the most recently vis-a-vis Trump is all of his legal troubles, whether it be with E. Jean Carroll or whether it be with the tax fraud, insurance fraud, business fraud case. There's been a lot of developments about how he's losing in court. And, my guess is it's just a very normie instinct of like, well, smoke where there's smoke, there's fire. Looks like he did some criminal shit. So his support is dropping a little bit. Biden's is jumping up a little bit. Not because anything Biden did, right? Just because of how bad Trump is. And I think we're starting to see the effects of that. The other potential scenario, and I saw somebody point this out on Twitter earlier today, I thought it was an interesting point, is that, all those traditional indicators that are always used by mainstream media to say, hey, everything's hunky-dory, everything's good, look, the stock market is up, unemployment is down. Me, personally, I don't think they're the best indicators. I don't. But at the same time, it might take 2 quarters before positive economic indicators like that are reflected in how people feel, right? And the fact of the matter is, given what the unemployment rate is and given what the stock market is doing, I've never in my lifetime seen a president with as low an approval rating as Biden has with the mainstream economic indicators that good, right? So in theory, Biden should be at least be at like 42% or so, given those traditional indicators, but he hasn't been. So what's possible now is it took 2 quarters to set in. He's getting a bump from that stuff. And then also, like I said, this is coinciding with all of Trump's legal problems. That's very possible. That's very possible. But the big guy, yet again, is in big trouble. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.